I'll just get us started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Quest seminar webinar. For those of you who don't know about Quest, Quest stands for Quality Undergraduate Experiences via Student Technology. It's very similar to SOAR in the sense that we want to reach out and impact students, but we do that in a different way. A lot of what Quest focuses on is very much technology-based and making sure that we can make an impact on students through technology. Another thing that we focus on is helping off-campus students through technology and providing off-campus events for off-campus students. Just making sure that we can grow the Hendrix community even more. For our first event, the seminar webinar, we're going to have campus public safety tips with Mr. Michael LeBlanc, who without further ado will come up and tell you about his career in public safety and about public safety in general at Hendrix. So, here we go.
First, I'd like to thank Quest for having me come and talk today. I'm going to talk to you about public safety. Initially, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I was in the United States Air Force for 13 years as a dog handler. I'm a veteran of the Gulf War, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation Provide Comfort. I also, once I got out of the military, I started my civilian law enforcement career. I was with the Rogers Police Department in Rogers, Arkansas, hence that's where the tie to Arkansas comes in and how I ended up here at Hendrix. I was a canine officer in Rogers for 5 years. We made the decision to make a move up to Iowa. Me and my wife had some family in Iowa, and I was an officer with the DeWitt Police Department for 8 years. Again, I worked my way up through the ranks to the rank of sergeant, worked in special operations, and eventually became the school liaison officer as well. It was when the September 11th happened. I was at as a school liaison officer that I got called back to active duty, and I ended up doing a couple of tours over into the desert. Came back to the police department, left it for a short period of time. I ended up finding my way to higher education, and got a job as the director of campus security and safety with Ashford University in Clinton, Iowa. Spent 5 years there. Just within this last year, they made an announcement that they were going to be closing the campus, and so that's where I started looking for employment outside of there, and that's what brought me to Hendrix. Earlier this year, I came down for an interview, and for me, it was just as much an interview. I was interviewing the college as what they were interviewing me. With Ashford closing, I wasn't leaving Ashford because I didn't like it there or I was using it as a stepping stone to another location. I was leaving because they were actually closing that traditional campus. And so, in coming to Hendrix reminded me a lot of Ashford University with the red buildings, brick buildings, the size of the campus, 1,600 students, 1,500 students is around the same population that was at Ashford. And then equally, the fact that there was a strong sense of community here at Hendrix, which there equally was at Ashford University. I earned my degree in my bachelor's degree in emergency management and homeland security. And then I was talking earlier, I have a fear of speaking actually. And so I knew the only way I would get better at that is if I forced myself to do it. Hence, I then got my teaching degree in teaching and learning with technology. I've been married for 29 years. I can tell you that, and my wife would tell you, probably not all of those years have been wonderful years. It's kind of like a roller coaster. It takes work. My analogy that I use for marriage is it's kind of like a car. If you don't take care of it, change the oil and change the tires, eventually it's going to break down. So you got to take care of a marriage. It's a lot of work. But a true testament, marriages can last a long time. I have 2 daughters, Amber, who's 27, who's attending college right now. She's in South Dakota. And my other daughter, Selby, who's 24, and she's the one who's caused every one of these gray hairs that I have. I also have my four-legged family members, Izzy, who's a Cavachon, Poppy, who's a Maltese, and Daisy, who's a Maltese. Having been a dog handler in the military, I was always very prone to having large dogs. My wife sold me on getting a Maltese, which was Daisy, the first one. I absolutely fell in love with her, and so we've had small dogs ever since. But I would like to get another German Shepherd at some time. So, when I first got here to Hendricks, I took a look at what we had in place as far as our mission at the Public Safety Department. And I found a piece of paper that it was about a page and a half long. And if you know anything about mission statements and vision statements, they're not supposed to be a page and a half long. They're only supposed to be a couple paragraphs. And so I've kind of reworked those. So our mission statement now is, the mission of Hendricks College Public Safety is to provide a safe environment for college community and visitors. Public safety is a service-oriented department which strives to accomplish this mission through visibility, education, and promoting personal responsibility. And I'm going to get back to that last one as far as personal responsibility as well. The vision is to provide excellent professional services to the campus community, maintain a safe learning environment for our community and its visitors by striving to and promoting the following practices: trust, integrity, professionalism, teamwork, ethical and moral behavior, diversity, fair and equal treatment, and crime prevention. Now off to the right, you're going to see what's called the 4 C's. Now I'm going to give credit to the person who devised this, and his name is Officer Jeffrey Postel. And Jeffrey Postel is a police officer that I met the acquaintance of. He's actually the police officer who arrested the Atlanta bombing suspect. And we've known each other for a number of years. And this was something that he brought to the Boston College Police Department. And I've absolutely, I adopted it at Ashford, and I absolutely love it. And the 4 C's are this. Number 1, as a public safety department, we need to show that we care. Okay? You as the student body, faculty, and staff need to know that we care. Number 2, we have to have compassion. If you've got a problem and you're getting a hold of us, that could be the worst thing that you've actually gone through that day. Okay? We need to be compassionate about that. 3, communication. When I came here and interviewed, that was probably one of the biggest things that I heard from students was the lack of communication that was happening between public safety and the student body. And then the last one, commitment. You guys, all the students here, faculty, staff, need to know that we're committed to our jobs here at Hendricks College. So, 4 C's, if we do those 4 different things, probably 90% of our problems will go away. So, what are the services that we provide? We operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We are the first response for most calls on campus, unless the call directly goes to 911. We offer, and I really want students to utilize this, we offer 24-hour escort services. Okay? Doesn't matter, day or night, male or female, if you need us to escort you from point A to point B, we want to make sure that you get there safely. So don't hesitate to call us. Vehicle registration, education and distribution of educational materials, community members assistance for vehicle lockouts, jump starts, so motorist assist, locking and unlocking of interior doors, timely notifications in accordance with the Clery Act. Now, if something doesn't meet the threshold for the Clery Act, as you've all probably seen, I'm going to send out a public safety advisory. We've had a few of those recently. If it's information that affects the people on the campus, but it doesn't meet the threshold for a timely notification, I still want to do my part and get that information out to you. Weather monitoring. All officers are certified in as far as AADs, CPR, and first aid. We enforce the campus parking policies. Okay. I know that's not a very positive one that most people don't like, but we do enforce the policies as far as parking. We work very closely with student affairs and student life as far as the Clery Act and compliance and filing of the Clery report. We're just getting ready to file our numbers for October 1st for last year's report for 2015. We administer the key system here at the campus. We operate the mass notification system, which is H-Alert. Everybody should be involved with H-Alert unless you've opted out. If you've opted out, come talk to me because I would really prefer that you're on the system. So if we have an emergency on campus, that way you're able to be notified. Access control, utilizing the Andover system. And we also, like I said, work very closely with student services and residence life. So, how many of you know all the public safety officers here on campus? Does anybody know all the officers here on the campus? You probably know a few of them that you've ran into, but you don't know who they are. So, in the future few months, we're going to be changing the campus webpage for public safety. We're going to add some photographs and some short bios of the officers, so that way you know a little bit more about them. We're going to try to get them out and to be involved with more events with students. And again, we're going to try to make sure every department has pictures of the officers. So you've got David Bew, he's the associate director. Russell Clark's a patrol officer. Craig Geens normally works nights. Bart Puckett normally works nights. He's a part-time officer, so is Officer Geens. JT Fulmer works midnights. Jan Lee, she works kind of an alternative schedule. Pete Moses, he's part-time. Pete's been around here forever. He's almost he's just been here forever. So great guy. If you ever have the opportunity to talk to him, he's got a lot of great history from working here at Hendricks. Steve Thacker, who's a part-time officer, we call to fill in at times. Philip Lucas, Deanna Hagar, John Hamlin. We have one vacancy right now, so we're advertising to try to get an officer. We're one officer down, shorthanded, so we're trying to get that person hired. Right now we've got 4 applicants. We're kind of waiting until we have more applicants than that. We also have some call-in officers in case we end up in a scheduling dilemma, that we got some officers that we can actually call in and make sure that we have the proper staffing. So some of the capital projects that we're working on, we've got the camera project at Huntington Apartments, the camera project at Hendricks Corner, and soon we'll have the camera project at the Front Street Apartments. Those were all student-driven. Students wanted those cameras here. I'm going to reiterate with the camera policy, we do not have somebody physically sitting down watching those cameras. Okay? They are for investigative purposes. Okay? So if something occurs, then we go back to them, and then we're able to review the tapes. We keep the footage on hand for they tape for 21 days, at which point, at that point, it'll start getting taped over. So the Student Senate felt that 21 days, 3 weeks was an adequate time as far as for the incident to be reported. Once things are reported, then we can pull that footage and we can keep it indefinitely. Okay? So, what are some of the initiatives that we've been doing at the public safety? Opening up lines of communications. Okay? I have been doing weekly meetings and bi-weekly meetings with, the bi-weekly meetings are with Student Senate. I have meetings with RA staff and the area coordinators, and currently I'm utilizing them as a conduit to the student body. As students bring things to their attention, they're sharing that with me, because if I don't know there's a problem, I can't fix it. And as we get to the end of the PowerPoint, I'm also going to ask if you've got ideas to make sure that you come forward and share those with me. I'm evaluating and revising the policies and procedures at the public safety building. A lot of the stuff that we do, there's no standard operating procedures for, so I'm in the process of writing procedures, because that gives clear direction as to how things should be done. If something happens to me or the assistant director, somebody should be able to come in, look at that policy manual, and know exactly how to run the department. Okay? That's what a policy manual is meant for. Build strategic partnerships by developing internal departmental communications, creating workplace communication. That's a whole mouthful, right? Basically what that means, is it's not just developing relationships with the student body, but it's also breaking down walls and building relationships with other departments here on campus. Okay? So working with other departments. I'm going to enhance the personal development of the officers. How I've done that is I've recently put all the officers through what is called strengths assessment. And what that is it's a way for me to identify what their top 5 strengths are. Well, now that I've identified their top 5 strengths, it's going to help me as a manager better manage them and put them into tasks which feed off of their strengths. And then eventually, as we move along, we'll also work on team building exercises to help build the team aspect as well. Research and purpose recommendations for active shooter training plan. So we're looking at the different programs that are in place at different colleges here in the local area, as well as the high schools. I'm a certified ALICE instructor, but that doesn't mean that ALICE is necessarily the way that we need to go. A lot of it depends on what they're using in this area. Ideally, if we can take the active shooting plan that's happening in the high schools and then adopt that here, then we're not changing plans. They're already used to the system. They just got to learn the buildings. Once that gets adopted up through leadership, then what we'll do is we'll start with training. We'll do training with faculty and staff, and then after that, then we'll get to students and we'll hold exercises and do training with the students. Assisting with updating the emergency action plan, crisis communications plan, and planning for future exercise to put those plans to a test. That will end up being, some of those will be tabletop exercises, some of those will eventually be full-fledged exercises where we're working with their constituents, the Conway Police Department, emergency services, fire department, emergency management. So I'm also developing those relationships as well with those agencies. And then increased reporting. We want increased reporting. We want people to report. Again, if we don't know that there's a problem out there, we can't fix it. So, some safety tips. How many people in here, you can go ahead and raise your hand, how many people Pokemon Go? All right, we got several. Now, I just read, just on the news, just 2 days ago, Good Morning America, there was a person who had 3 phones. He's in Central Park. He's doing Pokemon Go, and his camera actually captured someone coming up behind him and actually assaulting him. Because what happens when you're out looking for those Pokemon Go guys? You are involved in what's in front of you with those phones. You're looking for those imaginary characters, right? The Blastoises and the Charizards and the Pikachus and all those little characters, right? But are you paying attention to what's happening around you? If you're walking close to the roadway, are you paying attention to the traffic? Okay? If you're walking in a park or you're wherever your surroundings, are you making sure that nobody's following you? Those are all things that we need to take in consideration. So make sure if you're out there, I think it's a great thing to go out and it's a fun game, but make sure you're doing it safely. The other thing is, make sure you have somebody with you, okay? One of the other things that's happening is people are setting up where you can get stuff, right? And then they're waiting for you. And once you get there, they're either gonna, steal something from you or may assault you. So be careful. Be careful, all right? Never walk alone at night. Buddy system. Cannot talk about this enough, okay? If you're gonna be out and about, have somebody with you, have a friend with you. Let somebody know where you're going. If you're going downtown with a group of friends, let your roommate know, hey, I'm gonna be down at King's. I'm planning on getting back once they close. Okay, so that way if you don't show up, it raises the red flag. Okay, so then we can notify the correct people and make sure that we go out and start looking for you. Utilize your locks. Don't get complacent. I'm from in Iowa. I'm from came from a town called DeWitt. DeWitt, Iowa, is 5,000 people. It is a farming community. Everybody leaves their house open. Everybody leaves their car open. But what happens is some criminals will come into town, and then they have a smorgasbord, right? They start hitting vehicles, and they don't even have to break into them. They just open them up and start stealing stuff. Because people not just leave their car doors open, they leave their valuables in them. right? Same thing for their houses. They go to work or they leave their mail piling up so the criminals know that nobody's there and the doors are, not locked, and then you just go inside, get what you're going to grab, get out. You're in a jiffy and out in a jiffy. Still applies here on campus. Take the extra second to lock your dorm room before you leave. I can tell you I've just recently gone through all of 2013, all of 2014, and all of 2015 incident reports. We could cut our number of larceny/thefts and burglaries down by probably half if we weren't complacent. Most of those are, they've either left their book bag somewhere and it's been there for 2-3 hours. All of a sudden they remember, oh, I left my book bag there, and then they come back and it's gone. Or they've left their dorm room open. Okay? Or they've had parties and they don't know who all the people are in the parties that are there, and there's valuables laying out in your room. Okay? Hard to control. If you've got a whole bunch of people in your room and you're having a party, it's hard to control all those people, right? So make sure you put your valuables away, lock them up. Okay? Just a lot of that stuff, common sense, and we can really reduce the number of thefts and burglaries that we have on campus. Locate emergency systems areas on campus. Know where those blue lights are, right? Know where those blue lights are. So if something does happen, you know where you can get to one quickly, hit the button, and it'll automatically call us. All right? Drink responsibly. Okay? For those of you that are drinking age, drink responsibly. And if you're going to go downtown, okay, never leave your drink unattended. If you're going to leave your drink unattended, get a new drink. $4 or $5 to pay for a new drink is far better than potentially drinking a drink that has been roofied or something like that. Okay? And dealing with a lifetime of pain. So, drink responsibly, know what your limits are. I'm not telling you not to go out and have fun. I'm just saying do it responsibly. Okay? Report all suspicious persons to public safety. I can tell you here, since September 1st, we have had 17 people report suspicious people on campus. 17 reports since September 1st. That's great. That's awesome. That means people are reporting. If they see something, they're saying something. Right before I came over here today, I had somebody from Mills call up and say, hey, there was a white male, kind of unshaven, in a tank top, khaki shorts with a backpack. He didn't look like he belonged. He looked like he was heading towards Fawcett. Can you send P-Safe over to check him out? And we did. He checked out. He was just walking through campus. But we didn't know that, okay? We didn't know that. And we want to protect our community. So don't hesitate to give us a call. Secure your belongings. Already kind of talked about that. Use the Campus Export system. Trust your instincts, right? This morning had a report of an individual, went out in an advisory, if you didn't get it, went out in an advisory. Person came up in a Cadillac, and this was to a Cadillac, and it was to a staff member, right? Came up to the staff member, asked them if they were interested in a kitten, raised up a kitten, you know? The person really felt as though it was kind of like the whole candy thing. Come here, I've got some candy. That's the way that person felt, right? She did the right thing. She immediately left and contacted public safety, okay? We did a search of campus, and then we contacted Conway Police Department, notified them as well, so that they could be on the lookout for that person. So, again, trust your instincts. Did it make sense? Did it look right? The guy was kind of unshaven, driving a fairly new Cadillac, but out peddling kittens. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So if it doesn't seem right, there's a good chance it's not right. Have a plan. While you're out walking in between classes and walking to your dorm room, ask yourself, if somebody jumped out of the bushes, what would I do? Okay? Create a plan in your head. Think about those things. I used to drive my wife nuts because I would never drive the same way home more than 2 days in a row. I would alter my route of travel. And comes from my background. I just kind of do it without even thinking about it, and she's the one that pointed that out to me. But it's just good practice, have a plan. Police officers generally, if they go into a restaurant, you always see they want the far corner where their back's up against the wall. That way they can see everything that's going on. So little things. Have a plan. Have a plan. Think about what you would do. Most sexual assaults are committed by non-strangers in familiar social situations. No means no. Now, if you've been drinking, can you still give consent? No. No, you can't. Okay? No means no. And if the person is intoxicated, they can't give consent. They can't give consent. So, if you witness something that's happening, don't just be a bystander. Call P-Safe, say something, do something. If you're a victim of a crime, report the incident as soon as possible. That way we can do something about it. So, safety within our community. Whose responsibility is safety? Is it just public safety's responsibility? Anybody? It's everybody's responsibility, right? Remember when I talked about my mission statement, personal responsibility? Personal responsibility. If I go and I leave my Apple laptop over by the burrow, and then I go up and eat lunch, and I come back down and my Apple computer is gone, whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? Is it the criminal's fault? You kind of created that opportunity for criminal behavior. Part of that personal responsibility is making sure that you're doing what you need to do to take care of your belongings. Okay? Seeing something and saying something, right? We're part of a community here. We want to keep Hendricks safe. So if you see something, say something. We need to work together. So safety is everybody's responsibility. If you think about the number of people that we have here on campus, think about the number of sets of eyes that we have that see what's happening here on this campus. There should be very little that happens on this campus that doesn't get reported. Very little. So, all I'm asking is, do your part as well. Help us keep this a safe community. What can each of us do differently? I'll be the first one to tell you, I get complacent too. So try to fight that urge to get complacent. Think about how you can do things differently. When you're walking, help develop that plan. Think about that plan of what I can do. What would I do if? And public safety is a partnership. What can we do to work together better than what we've worked together in the past? Because I am open to any of your suggestions. I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't have all the answers. I've got a lot of experience, but I don't have all the answers. And I can guarantee you, with all the people on this campus, somebody could come up with something that I haven't thought of. Okay? And if somebody does come up with something I haven't thought of, I want to know about it. So it's something that we may be able to implement and make this a safer location. So I was just talking earlier. I had a student send me an email this afternoon who wanted to share with me some of his concerns about the campus and safety on campus. My reaction was not to get defensive. Instead, it was, when can we set up a meeting? I want to sit down and talk to you. Talk to you about the ideas that you have. I will make time in my schedule for that, okay? Because your guys' safety is my number one priority. So, if you have any ideas on how we can work together better, if you have any ideas on what we can do differently, any ideas that you have at all to make this a better campus and a safer campus, don't hesitate to contact me. My email address is leblanc@hendricks.edu. Okay? Don't hesitate to reach out to me. So, one of my favorite quotes is from Benjamin Franklin. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. right? Ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So the little things that we do to prevent something from happening can have a big effect. And that concludes. So I'm going to open it up to any questions that you have. Yes.
Hi. So, first I just want to thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. The time you gave me. So I'm confident that we can make good changes. So last year, a big complaint about PSAFE was response. I think that really damaged the trust between the student body and PSAFE. So I was wondering what initiatives you're taking to fix that problem. Both considering escort services and just like general.
Absolutely. So, I started in September 1st, starting to track the number of calls that we had. Because, number one, in your mind, what does public safety do? Help the students. We drive around in our vehicles, we check doors, we occasionally get calls, and we drive around. Right? And that's generally the gist of what people think that public safety is. We get, when you call us and you need us, then we come. So what I did was I started tracking all the different calls that we actually get during a day, and started breaking those down, and I'm starting to track all those over a month's time. So starting from September 1st, I'm not counting just the patrol stuff, the rattling of doors, those type of things. I've got about 20 or 25 or 30 different type of calls, from assisting motorists to fire alarm calls to doing bank runs, escorts, ambulance calls, animals calls, just all the different type of calls that we go on. Since September 1st, we've had 259 calls to service on top of just normal things that we do. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is maybe sending that out in like a blotter report in the paper, just so that the students and the faculty and staff are aware of the number of calls that are coming in. So I told you that we're one officer down, so sometimes we end up being a little thin. And so we're trying to get that extra officer hired so we have better coverage. And also trying to change the way, the behaviors of some of the officers. Not saying that what they were doing was wrong or anything else, but they were under different leadership prior to me getting here. Okay? I can't do anything about what was being done prior to me getting here. But what I can do is attempt to change the behavior and the methodology and way we do things. Number one, we're a customer service organization. 90% of what we do is customer service. I'm trying to get the officers to think of other things and broaden their scope of thought. For instance, I talked about breaking down barriers with different departments. Admissions, I'm going to use admissions as an example. Okay? Half of the battle of admissions is what? Bringing new students into Hendricks. But it's not just that. Okay? And for those new students, sometimes PSAFE is the first people that they have interaction with, right? So we want that to be a positive interaction. But it's not just that, it's also down the line, we need to retain those students, right? That's the other half or component to admissions. It's not just getting those students here, but we also need to have good retainability of keeping those students here once we have them here. And so our interactions with students has to remain positive. Now, you're going to have that 10% that no matter what we do, they're just not going to have a very good opinion of public safety. And, if it's kind of a double-edged sword, we're in a catch-22. There's rules at the campus, and we are the ones that have to enforce those rules. And if you're the one that we're enforcing the rules on and you don't agree with it, obviously you're not going to be very happy with public safety. But that doesn't mean that we don't still continue to try to make those positive interactions. So what I've asked the officers to do is take a step back when they're dealing with people, put yourself in their shoes, and look at the way we're doing things. Now that change is not going to happen overnight. Whenever you're changing people's behaviors, it takes a period of time. but I think we're moving in a good direction. I've already had several people within the community come up and say, hey, I've really seen a change in the way the officers have treated me. So I know we're headed in the right direction, but it's still going to take time till we get everybody there. The other thing that I'm going to be doing is doing monthly meetings with the public safety officers, and I'm going to be bringing people in from other departments, even student senate, RAs, area coordinators, to come in and talk to the officers, again, to help build that relationship. Because up to this point, those relationships have kind of fell to the wayside. So hopefully that answers your question. Yes.
So I noticed that one of the initiatives that you're going to be trying to take with the other PSAFE officers is you're going to be engaging in a lot more training. And so one of the biggest concerns that I've heard just from fellow students, especially from female students, is that whenever they have gone to report even the possibility of a sexual assault, is that the officers are not exactly the most tactful. And so I was wondering if you ever had any plans to go and do like sexual assault awareness training or cultural competency training for dealing with students that may or may not be international students.
Yeah, so one of the first things I did when I got here, my budget was already set. So I've got only a certain amount of money in my training budget, but I've already, the person that I report to, I've already talked to them and basically said, hey, for next year, I need an increase in my training budget because we need to be doing extra training with the officers. Just because they're here, once we give them their initial training, that training needs to keep going. We're looking at basically one of our police officers, our public safety officers, becoming a Title IX investigator. Okay, and working with Student Affairs, we've in collaboration with Student Affairs, they've asked if we have an officer that might be interested in becoming a Title IX investigator, and I've identified, based on their strengths, that through the strengths assessment training, I've looked at their strengths and said, I've got 2 officers that I believe would be good candidates for that training. So we have to be very careful because the officer who's a Title IX investor can't be the officer that makes the initial investigation. And so, but to answer your question, yes, we are looking to many different training classes for the officers, and sexual assault and sensitivity to that would be one of them.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You're approaching a lot of issues on campus right now, but have you made any progress in increasing the lighting on campus?
Okay. So traditionally, from my understanding, traditionally they do a light walk in November and try to identify areas where lighting is not so good. My personal feeling is that I would like to see better lighting here. So I came with tools in hand when I came here. I have a light meter that I carry with me. And so I have already been out at nighttime taking readings from that light meter in several different areas, and I am making recommendations to increase lighting in certain areas of the campus. Again, I'm going to be working very closely, collaboratively with Student Affairs to identify those locations and make recommendations to increase lighting in certain areas in the campus. Yes?
So a little bit earlier, you talked about how response time is something that you're studying and focusing on improving. Do you think that there are any portions on Henrikson's campus that suffer from maybe having a slower response time than others? Do you think that's the case?
There's certain things within day-to-day operations. Like currently day-to-day operations, I've got 3 officers coming on tonight, but because I've got only 1 regular vehicle that is operational and 2 golf carts, of course, that's going to have a bearing on response times. Okay. Additionally, what I've instructed the officers to do, and hopefully, and I've heard already that some are doing that, but I will be reiterating that with them, is if they get a call for service and they're tied up to where Maybe they're working a vehicle accident, okay? And they're tied up, or they're in the middle of taking out a core and putting in a new core at a building. Obviously, they can't necessarily stop exactly what they're doing at that second, but what they can do is take a step back and say to the student, listen, this is what I'm in the middle of right this second. What you're calling about is very important to me, but it's going to be 10 or 15 minutes before I get there. Again, it's that whole communication piece. If we can communicate better to the student to where the student understands what's going on, and if they understand ahead of time that it may be 10 or 15 minutes, again, they may not be happy, but at least they've got a reason as to why that officer's not getting there for 10 or 15 minutes. There are times, again, like I said, with us being one officer down, on day shift, where there's only one officer on duty. And if there's just one officer, this is a fairly good-sized campus, for one officer, if he's involved with a call here, to get all the way over to the other side of campus. There's certain things like lockouts during the day. Normally, the process is they get a hold of the RA first, and if the RA is not available, then public safety will come and unlock the door. So there's some things like that that the students may not be aware of, and all they're looking at the current situation. I'm unlocked out of my room. I need to get back in my room because I've got a class in 10 minutes, and P-Safe is not getting here, so I can get my stuff. So, again, it all goes back to education and definitely looking at response times and doing everything we can to increase those, to make those better. Any other questions? Yes.
So something else that I've talked about with a number of people over the years is a matter of like students' own personal protection in terms of what the best method would be. Like there's the, I don't know what exactly they're called, but they're
The little key ring with
the key ring with the spikes, and then
Yeah.
I've talked to some people that they carry pepper spray, and so I work some of the evening shifts over in the media center, and sometimes if there's only one or two of us at the bridge, and I have to go over to Mills, and it's 10 o'clock at night, but the other person's already gone, I'm kind of in between a rock and a hard place, especially if it's going to look bad on me because I don't get over there in time to go and fix a problem. And so I was wondering, one of the faculty members here before the rest of the students moved in actually suggested that I go out and purchase a stun gun from the police surplus store in Conway. And I was wondering what your opinions are, suggestions are for personal
There's
protection.
positives and negatives, okay? So number one is, the positive is you've got a stun gun, right, to potentially use on that individual, as long as you're familiar with how it's used and everything else. But the flip side of that is what happens if that individual takes the stun gun away from you and uses it on you? Again, catch-22, there's positives and there's negatives. Same thing with mace, right? In the heat of using mace, you need to make sure that you're not downwind, right? Because if you spray the individual in the face and the wind's blowing at you, guess what? You're not just going to mace them, you're going to mace yourself. And if you've never been exposed to mace, it's pretty much sling and snot. I mean, you're not going to be able to focus, and it's, yeah. So there's positives and there's negatives. Again, if you're able to utilize the escort system, that would be my first thing to say. Call ahead. If you know that you're getting off at a certain time, call 10, 15 minutes ahead and say, hey, can you be here at this time to come give me an escort? Be proactive that way and say, versus calling them and saying, I need you here right now. Call 10, 15 minutes ahead of time. Say, hey, I need an escort. This is what time I get off. Can you come make sure that I'm here? And then if you run into a problem with that, by all means, get a hold of either me or David, and we'll take care of that issue.
Okay, thank you.
So, again, that's a personal choice. The key ring thing, I think those are always good to have. My daughters have them. My daughter had a stun gun. She actually, somebody tried to mug her, and, she used it, and she ended up being fine. But again, that's a personal decision, and there's pluses and there's minuses to it. So, any other questions? Yes?
Was your daughter fined or fined
She was fined. She was actually fined. Yeah, the person came up, she ended up grabbing the stun gun, she didn't actually get him, but she crackled it, and the crackling it was enough that he didn't want any part of it, and he took off running. So, but she knows pretty well how to take care of herself. Any other questions? Well, if there's not any further questions, I just want to thank you, each one of you, for coming and showing up. If you have any questions that you think of later on, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Again, if you come up with any ideas, or any of your other students or friends have ideas, again, tell them not to hesitate to reach out to me. I don't bite. I'm pretty easy to get along with, and I will make time. I will make time if I have to. If I have to rearrange my schedule, I'll do what I can to do that. Because, like I said, the students are my first priority here. Thank you.